DFA to keep their funds funded in those periods of underperformance. And now, in some respects, in the world of ETFs, investors who use them don't have that same security blanket or help, and it falls to us to help educate investors to stay the course through those tough times to get the return and earn it. Yeah.
And by the way, for people who get a little irritated thinking that they're getting involved with actively managed ETFs. And by the way, the government now identifies people like DFA and Avantis as non-traditional index funds. So they have come up with that as a formal name for this kind of a fund. But if you don't think they're doing everything they can to minimize the expenses, you might look at the turnover at both Avantis and DFA. The turnover is very low. So I think in that small cap value fund, their turnover is 8%, which is actually for small cap value, that is very low. So, but I also think you'll find it interesting, and I'm not going to certainly not going to override any of your recommendations, Chris. You're the man. But I will tell you, if somebody looked at DFA's small cap value, for example, and they looked at AVUV and they looked at Morningstar and they looked at the top 25 companies, you'd be amazed at how different there. Yes, there is some overlap. In fact, there's some website, I can't remember where it is, that you can see how much overlap there is. But if somebody making a long-term commitment to small cap value put half their money in Avanta small cap and half their money in DFA small cap value ETF, I would not think that to be an illogical thing to do.
Well, and Paul, you can see on my chart now the relative return, the relative factor predicted expected returns are 1.3% for AVUV and 1.2% for DFSV. So again, I'm trying to be transparent, and whether that's numerically significant or not, I can't even tell you. I just have to pick one that is my recommended one, and it's easier to pick the higher number. But I'm right there with you. If somebody wanted to use the DFA fund in addition or instead, I'd be hard pressed to argue that's a mistake. Yeah.
So, Chris, I have a question. Well, a comment, I think, first, and that's that I think originally Dimensional had you use an advisor because it lowered their turnover because
hmm
they would or maybe not force is the wrong word, but work with investors to keep them in the stay the course foundation and or found approach, and that would reduce their turnover, which would reduce their expenses. And so that would help them increase their return because they would have lower expenses. The other thing is when you don't highlight a specific time period on here, what time period did you use?
I think that's both.
Does it
It's
say it
down
up
in the
above
bottom in the
maybe?
notes. The best
Oh,
in-class ETFs are chosen primarily based on the 1964 to 1924 Fama French factor premiums. So the
thank you.
premiums are established from 1964 to 24, and that's multiplied by the November 21 through October 24 fund factor exposures, except where otherwise noted. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's on there.
thank
It's
you.
great work, Chris. Uh, the investors, most of them are never going to get here without help because it's just too much to ask them to do. And this, of course, the big challenge in trying to help a do-it-yourself investor is that we're trying to give you at each fork in the road, including the ETFs that you could put in your portfolio. And we're not allowed to be your advisor. We're here for what the small print says. We're here for entertainment purposes only. But I will tell you, it's the most serious entertainment I can think of because I do believe that the key to you winning as a do-it-yourself investor is to realize that most of what's out there is pure noise. Most of what's out there has conflicts of interest in so many areas. And most of what is out there is not truly, from everything we know, in your best interest. But you are asked to do the heaviest lifting of all, and that is to have the emotional discipline to do all of these things. And therein is the challenge. And what I can say about your work, Chris, from everything that I've seen, we know nobody knows what's going to happen in the future. I talked to two people this morning that are on their way. One, they're moving to Italy, and somebody else is moving to some other country in Europe. Well, and the third one yesterday, talking about going to Mexico, and who knows what types of chaos all of us are going to have, not just political, whatever. I mean, there's economic, those things are going to happen. And will you have the discipline to stay the course? That is up to you. But we're doing what we can to give you the tools that you need. And Chris, I just want to thank you, and Daryl, you too. I think the work that you've done is building confidence for the long term. We are not going to be alive for the long term, but many of the people we're serving are in their 20s and 30s, and they're going to have to get this. We got to figure out how to keep them on track when the three of us are no longer here. That's a conversation for another day.
Well, sorry if it got too nerdy today, but it's
Oh,
important,
great.
I think, for people to understand that it's not just some wizard behind a curtain picking things. I'm trying to, and hopefully the data and the numbers help people make smart choices. And really, at the end of the day, the most important part is that you come up with a plan you can stick with.
Yeah.
And so if the data helps you do that, if the data helps you pick funds you can stick with that you don't have to trade in and out of over time, then we've done our job.
And I do think that we should note in the note field, have a link to the sound investing presentation, the boot camp presentation, because you put the sound investing portfolios together with the recommended ETFs, then the only thing, in a sense, you don't have is how much in fixed income. And you can go and look at last year's boot camp on fixed income, fine tuning your asset allocation. But I will tell you, in a couple of weeks, we'll have the latest version of fine tuning your asset allocation because once you know the equity asset classes and what percentage is there, what you're left with is the fixed income question, and that's another one that one by one we have to make that decision. So thank you both. Do you have anything else you want to add for the good of the organization?
A very impressive work, Chris.
Yep.
It's not just some guy's opinion. It's informed opinion backed by transparent analysis. So I'm very impressed. Good work.
Well, right back at you, Daryl. If I was as efficient and systematic about this as you are with the tables, it would have been done a month ago.
Well, we're working
and
on it.
and if I hadn't met you two guys, I don't know what I'd be out selling today. So thank you very much. You guys are great. Take care, and thank you for you being here. And please, we don't have a big advertising budget. And so the best advertising we have is when you tell your friends that these people are doing work, that if you are willing to do some of the homework yourself, that we think that this is going to be good for your financial future. We have more and more parents telling me that they are convincing their young adult children to dig into our work. And one just yesterday, Chris, had a long conversation, in fact, with a friend of yours, and we ended up making sure that their kids, it's more than two,
Quite a
their
bit more than two.
yes, that their kids all have copies of We're Talking Millions and Two Funds for Life. And if they don't read the other free book there that we have available about spending your way to wealth, they're missing a good book there, I think, to learn some real gems. All free on our website to try to help you and your family and your friends be better investors. So thanks to you guys, thanks to you guys, and we'll see you next week.